Looks like you could use some help.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a good topic for this week's Faith Around and Find Out Friday.
Well, you have fun with that, bro.
But you just offered help. How do I get help that way?
Pure angelic power.
Oh, the video angel. Angel, what do you have for us?
The top 5 reasons the global flood may have actually happened.
Noah's flood on a Friday?
Yes!
Okay then, let's do this. So I was looking to get a video talking about what is in the Bible. I figured that since we've been talking about young Earth so much, that I would complement it with a Faith Around and Find Out video. How else better to do that than with the biblical flood of Noah? The one we're featuring is with the Voice of Reasons channel. Now, he has an interesting take on it with this 5 scientific reasons the flood was global, and I personally think that is funny. Let's go with it and see what happens.
This is going to be very entertaining.
I agree. Angel, if you would be so kind as to get started on this for us, please.
Number 5. Human documented history of the flood. If a global flood happened, you'd expect people around the world in ancient history to have told this story. And they do. Basically, all the people. The Chinese, the Native Americans, the Hindi people, the Sumerians, the Greek, the Aztecs, the Norse people, the story of Atlantis, and of course the biblical story, which is the account of the Jewish people. And their stories are largely similar. God or the gods were mad, and so they flooded the earth, while the hero of the story builds a boat and saved all the people and the animals.
Well, no, there would not be similar stories from other cultures at all. For starters, Genesis chapter 7 verses 21 to 23 read, "The waters rose and covered the mountains to a depth of more than 15 cubits. Every living thing that moved on land perished, birds, livestock, wild animals, all the creatures that swarm over the earth, and all mankind. Everything on dry land that held the breath of life in its nostrils died. Every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out. People and animals and the creatures that move along the ground and the birds that wiped from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those with him in the ark." So biblically, who was Noah telling? Well, according to this, he was telling his own family and his own descendants. He and his small family were the only ones that lived, after all. It is more likely, and in fact more accurate, to say that from different flood myths came from different floods. All the different myths tell very different stories. In most of them, they aren't saving the animals at all. There is one where the only survivors are on a small little boat. In truth, almost none of them are similar to one another. The stories from South Korea even vary from place to place and are local orally given stories. Japan itself has no flood myth at all, and instead they have an earthquake myth, while in the northwest United States, their flood myth of a native peoples occurred only a few hundred years ago when the Cascadia subduction zone popped off, creating a tsunami. From there, the gods were fighting in the waters and caused the land to get flooded from the thrashing about. So no, what the Voice of Reason channel said is not true at all.
Number 4. Geologic evidence of a catastrophic flood. There is evidence all over the world of unfathomably massive flooding. For centuries, science taught us that everything we see was the result of slow, steady processes over deep time. Until J. Harlan Barretts took on the scientific elites and proved the Great Ice Dam flood of the Pacific Northwest. You can see the size of these small ripples that are the result of a local flood. And these pictures from the Camas Prairie in Idaho, which is in the path of this Missoula flood, has the same kind of ripples, but the scale is hundreds if not thousands of times larger. Everybody knows the Niagara Falls. This is the Horseshoe Dam, compared to the Dry Falls Formation in Washington, also part of this Missoula flood. The water at the Niagara Falls rushes over the edge at 200,000 cubic feet per second, while the water at this Dry Falls Formation ravaged through at 300 to 400 million cubic feet per second, hundreds of times more water than the Niagara Falls. Imagine the scale. And now that we know that these formations were caused by catastrophic floods, science is finding evidence of these kind of catastrophic floods all over the world, including 2 that are larger than the Missoula flood.
Angel, this guy does realize we're supposed to be getting evidence for the Noah flood, right? Did you just nod? Is this how you're going to communicate? Okay, that works. So, why would he bring up several different, obviously local flooding events that have nothing to do with the flood of Noah as evidence for the flood of Noah? Was that a shrug? Well, this is how the video angel will be communicating while being mute. So yes, there is plenty of evidence all over the world of massive flooding events, but the key thing to take away from this is that the word events is plural. Separate events that happened over time, not all at the same time in a global flood. In fact, the evidence he is pointing to is not evidence of a global flood at all. Ripples like that occur when there is a fast rush of water over an area. But the flood, according to Noah's story, in Genesis chapter 7, verse 24, says, "The waters flooded the earth for 150 days. This continues in 8, verse 3 to 5, say, "The water receded steadily from the earth. At the end of 150 days, the water had gone down. And on the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The waters continued to recede until the 10th month, and on the first day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains became visible." Keep in mind, biblically, the earth is still completely flooded at this point. Just 15 cubits in depth of water have gone down here. So this is all very slow of a recession of water. It was another 4 months, before the water was gone. So the water was not rushing anywhere. And in fact, with a slow and even recession of the water, those rolling hills would not have been able to form. So his evidence of the global flood is actually evidence there was never a global flood, and more evidence the floods were all local. 2 down, 3 to go. Think he's going to score a hit?
Maybe.
I disagree. Angel, if you would, please.
Number 3, oceans underneath the Earth's crust. One of the first questions that comes to mind when thinking of a global flood is, where did the water come from? Which is a good question at surface level. But if you read the biblical account of Noah's flood, it's very clear where the water came from. Genesis 7:11. In the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the 2nd month. On that day, all the springs of the great deep burst forth. Job 38:8. Who shut up the sea behind doors when it burst forth from the womb?
Where did the water come from?
The Bible clearly says that the floodwaters came from inside of the earth, and scientists have potentially just recently found this water. They now estimate that there's more water underneath the earth's crust than above. How did the author of the Bible get this right over 3,000 years ago? Good guess, Moses.
Deceptions, deceptions, deceptions. When one speaks in half-truths, they are the worst kind of lies. Is there water underneath the surface of the earth's crust?
No.
Correct, ACD. Is there water underneath the surface of the planet?
Yeah.
Correct again, ACD. So wait, did I just contradict myself?
Not today, Satan!
ACD's on point. Let me explain. Let's break down how ignorant this guy's statement is, what it would mean to life if the water underneath the surface was released, and how much is there actually.
Let's do this.
First of all, the water is not in the crust. It is in the mantle 500 miles below the surface. it's supposed to be trapped in a layer of minerals called ringwoodite. The water is not in a form of solid, liquid, or gas, but is trapped within the molecular structure of the minerals down there. It is also scorching hot due to all the pressure and movement underneath the crust. The mantle layer is where we get magma through volcanoes that reach back up to the surface. So all that water is far past the boiling point and way above the point that steam could burn or kill you. So let's just for a moment argue that this water could be released 500 miles from underneath the surface. If that happened, it would be released with the ringwoodite it is trapped in. And at that point, it would turn the water already on the surface past the boiling point. In short, the earth would be turned into a boiling soup of dead people, plants, and animals. The oceans would also be so hot it would cook Noah and his family in a matter of hours of the flood starting, if not minutes, by the sight of the geysers he is trying to show from the Noah movie. And if he wants to argue that God cooled it off, how much special pleading does he want to get through? In short, the water is trapped down there. It's not getting out unless you want to destroy everything and everyone, including the ones you say you want to live. This can't be the water talked about in the days of Noah. And with all the water in the crust, he would have had between 50 and 100-foot rise in the water level. Enough for a few areas to have start swimming, but there's already plenty of dry land left. You can't have your cake and eat it too.
Alrighty, job well done.
Not yet. We have 2 more to go. 0 for 3 and 2 to go.
Number 2, the Ice Age. The fact that there was even an Ice Age at all provides strong evidence for a global flood. Why? We all have this idea of what the Ice Age was. The entire Earth covered in snow, but that's not the truth. The Earth was only about 4 degrees colder. However, up to 30% of the Earth was covered in ice. Glaciers, technically. Today, less than 5% of the Earth is covered in glaciers. So where did all the snow come from to cover 30% of the Earth? What do you need to form ice? Cold and water. If you only have cold, then you just have a cold age, not an ice age. Where did the precipitation come from? At the beginning of this last winter, Buffalo, New York experienced the most massive blizzard in its recorded history, when a lake effect storm caused 60 inches of snow to encase the city. And how did this happen? Freezing cold Arctic air moved south over the warm waters of the Great Lakes. The waters were still warm from the fall, and as the cold air passes over the warm water, it causes evaporation, precipitation. And in the Buffalo blizzard, this created a conveyor belt of snow, as the warm waters meeting the cold air caused the formation of the clouds and precipitation. And this can explain where the water for the Ice Age came from. Models show that if there was a global flood, this event would have created a tremendous amount of energy or heat, largely due to friction. This heat would have dissipated into, and of course, heated up the oceans, creating this lake effect phenomenon, but on a global scale.
So this is just downright and absolutely stupid to say. Like, really and seriously stupid. Let's say this actually was the case. Mount Ararat is in Turkey. It is also where the glaciers were during the Ice Age, so Noah would have been a popsicle. Oh, I'm not done yet. Second, only a little bit ago, he said that the Ice Age is what released the water for the flood. And now he's saying the flood caused the Ice Age. So which is it? Or are we going with the flood caused the Ice Age, caused the flood, caused the Ice Age, caused the flood, caused the Ice Age? I'll stop now. Next, we can go down the lake effect snow thing. So let's assume for a moment that all the water is warm and the earth is covered in water. Where is there anywhere for the air to get cold if it is all above the warm water? The water would have warmed the air. The entire point of the lake effect snow was that colder air came off the land to go over the water, which caused the snow on the other side. But you claim everything was underwater. No land for that water to get cold on. Seriously, we just want one argument where about 5-minute Google search or basic logic can defeat it. 0 for 4. He has 1 shot left.
Number 1 evidence that a global flood may have actually happened, the fossil record. How is a fossil formed? When an animal dies, the scavengers almost immediately get to work on beginning the process of disassembling the formerly living thing. And this is just the beginning phase of its total decomposition, finished off by bugs, bacteria, and fungi. It's gross, but it's an amazing system for recycling organic material. Because of the efficacy of this recycling process, dead animals stand basically no chance at being preserved in any complete or articulated way. And this is why, in order for something to become a fossil, it basically needs to be rapidly buried by mud or sand, which helps to make sense of the fossils of animals that died while eating, giving birth, and that are found in death poses, arched back before being rapidly covered by mud, sometimes sand. So the very fact that fossils are found all over the earth is compelling evidence for a global, rapid animal burying event, like a flood. It also explains why marine fossils, like whales and sharks, have been found in the middle of deserts and also on the top of Mount Everest, the Himalayas, the highest mountains in the world. So what do you think? Did a global flood actually happen?
As Zero Punctuation once said, in short, no. In long, no. Let's break down a few of the things he just said, because since this clip I went over a minute, there's a bunch of BS in all of this, but also some truth. As I said earlier, a half-truth is the worst kind of lie. Now, is what he said true about what happens to living things after they die?
Of course.
So they do need a quick burial. He is also right there. But here is where he is blatantly wrong. The flood would have been a singular burial event with all the living things being buried all in the same, now, rock and all mixed together. But that's not what we see. We see distinct layers of periodic burying and fossilization. All over the world, these layers continue to form and preserve a sample of the creatures that lived around that time in the area. A fun little fact for people is that because of the geological column, we know that the Tyrannosaurus existed on Earth closer to the time of the iPhone than the time of the Stegosaurus. These are mind-boggling amounts of time. Next, he mentions animals that died while eating or giving birth. Well, duh. If you were buried in a landslide, you wouldn't really have time to finish eating before you were dead. And if you were pregnant, I doubt the mudslide or rock slide is going to wait until you pop the kid out. Next, he brings up marine fossils found in deserts, and he mentioned whales. This is correct as well, because not all the land was always above the surface of the water. The Great Plains of the United States were once completely underwater during the split of Pangaea, and the New Orleans area was under for much, much longer. Different land masses all took turns being underneath the oceans and above the oceans. But the true dishonesty came in what he said about Everest. If we found a shark or a whale fossil above there, it would be evidence of a global flood. But he doesn't keep that NASA page up there for long. What it says is limestone and ocean marine fossils. They are proving plate tectonics and early ocean life getting pushed up by it. But you will never find a fish up there. Just small exoskeletons of very early ocean life. Be better than needing to bullshit your way through a conversation. This geological column disproves the global flood, since the only way to make it would be local, smaller floods repeated over millions of years. 0 for 5. Now, I usually end this with a conversation with the audio clip demon and the video clip angel, but at this point, I'm just so sick of dealing with idiots. I just think I'm done.
Wow, I feel so loved here.
You are loved. You are both loved. I wasn't talking about you being idiots. I was talking about my subjects here.
Alrighty, job well done.
Thank you. I appreciate the concern there. I think I did a good job here too.
That's what she said.
So, this has been Corsi, and this is the Fluffy Atheist. If you like this, hit those like and subscribe buttons, and share it if you want to share a funny video or you want to point and laugh. I'm good either way.